The NBA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Maybe I should talk that into the mic. The NBA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code NBA SGPN to get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Start crushing college football, WNBA, NFL with Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. Yay, sir. We are back. Shoot, I'm back. You know me, know the voice on the guy. It's me, a really real, villain real, Terrell Furman Jr. here at your service. NBA's around the corner. Scott, Munaf, been holding it down. But you always need a little bit of villainy in your lives. Where there's heroes, there must be villains. And hey, I mean, either you die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become a villain. So why not just invite villainy into your life? We're going to have a great season. It's going to be a great, great season. Big money line dogs. Going to love it. And we're here talking about the Atlantic Division preview for the NBA season with my co-host Scott Studio Reichel. Scott, what's going on?
Scotty, beam me up.
Surprise.
Yeah, doing pretty well. Can't complain. Had a pretty fun NFL Sunday. Survived Aubrey in fantasy, which is nice. So I actually won a matchup. Shout out to Joe Flacco, who carried my fantasy team. But for the actual, I'd say, games that we are looking forward to potentially the most, I know you mentioned a trend before we went live. NBA preseason. There might be some angles to make some money. So if you're trying to find some action to watch, I know that it's basically baseball. Yankees play today. You also have some Monday Night Football. Problem is the Chiefs have been, for lack of a better word, boring this season to watch. And Derek Carr's Derek Carr. So if you want to watch some basketball, you got some preseason on tonight. So just keep that in mind. Point is, though, we're back to cover another division. We're going to cover the Atlantic. Pretty fun division. You have both of our favorite teams in it. Now, one of our teams actually made a blockbuster trade. The other team,
I think both of our teams made a blockbuster
they
trade.
did, but one team involves winning, and the other team involves winning maybe 5 years from now. But we're going to cover it because both our favorite teams are in this division.
All right. Love it. I mean, hey, we can get to that, but we'll get to that in just a second. But first, I want to remind the people about Hurricane Helene and how devastating it was to the people of Western North Carolina over there in the Asheville. Shout out to the 828. Really, really, really tough stuff. I seen the dam overflow and just tons of water poured directly into the city, flooding people's houses, going down the street. It's really, really bad. And so we're partnering up with mountainprojects.org to help give back. Biggest donation will get a guest spot on the College Picks show on the SGP Sports Gambling Podcast. So make sure, and they'll give you a ton of gear too, like not just a guest spot, but they'll send you a whole bunch of SGPN gear. So please, please, please donate. Drop that SGPN in the memos, and they'll 100% biggest donation will get a guest spot on the Sports Gambling Podcast. Go to mountainprojects.org. And make sure you're always tuning in to the NBA Gambling Podcast, WNBA Gambling Podcast, Tennis Gambling Podcast, MLB Gambling Podcast. Yeah. Oh, let's throw it. Yeah, that's everything. All right, so yeah, make sure you tune in. Hey, give us a rating on Spotify, actually. 5-star rating. It doesn't have to be 5-star. You can be honest, but I mean, come on. Why would it not be 5 stars? Only you can prevent corporate gambling from taking over. All right. Scott, we're here talking about the Atlantic Division. Worst to first. Worst, your Brooklyn Nets.
Yep.
And I mean, it's been since for a while we felt like the Nets been pretty unserious about basketball, but I guess now it's just a complete overhaul of the team. And I feel like you called for this last season, actually, just saying just sell everybody and just start from the bottom up and rebuild this roster into something. And I mean, clearly they listened and they're taking advantage of the opportunity. They got some of their picks back. So the Brooklyn Nets are currently sitting with division odds of 600 to 1. Win total set at 19 and a half. Make playoffs 30 to 1. Miss playoffs. You got to lay $20,000 to get $100. Scott, are you laying $20,000 on the Nets to miss playoffs?
I mean, it is free money. I gotta talk to my accountant and move some stuff around. But the point is that this Nets team's gonna be
Got the
terrible.
check-ins and the savings. Got to move the check-ins to the savings and the savings to the
Yeah,
check-ins. Yeah,
a
I
little
get
bit
it.
of 401k in there. Point is though, for the actual upcoming season. By the way, these odds are from DraftKings. The Nets are going to be horrible, but they're intentionally going to be horrible because they were able to reacquire their own draft picks, which tells you the state of the front office because they ended up trading away a bunch of draft picks, of course, in the Harden trades. The Durant trade, of course, they ended up getting some first-round picks back from Phoenix because they ended up getting a bunch of picks and Mikal Bridges. Then Bridges left, of course, in the offseason, so the Nets got some stuff there too. Point is, the Nets decided to overhaul the entire team, and I'm really happy about it because last year they were a fringe play-in team, which wasn't really that close to making the play-in, but the point is they were in kind of purgatory, which is the worst place to be because they were not terrible enough to bottom out, but they weren't good enough to actually do anything. So you were kind of stuck with a low percentage in ping pong balls. Plus, you also didn't have any of your own draft picks because the Nets have been trading away draft picks for years, and they finally got some back. You can make an argument that getting, was it 5 first-round picks for Bridges, was the best trade that the Nets could have gotten. I think the better player is actually getting their own first-round picks back from Houston. I just thought that was a very solid move to basically admit that what I said was correct. So I am biased, but the argument is, why are we trying to be mediocre dash slightly bad? Why are we not trying to be terrible and get Cooper Flag? And I feel like that was the main direction that the team needed to go in. I don't think it was really a choice, to be honest. But I feel like when you're looking at the actual, I'd say, direction of the franchise, they didn't have one because they were so focused on Harden, Kyrie, and Durant that once that thing imploded, and it imploded pretty quickly, they didn't have a plan B. They were trying to remain competitive with Durant and Kyrie there. Then you saw, of course, how it unfolded, and they got swept by the Celtics in the first round. So the point, they weren't really close to anything. And they finally realized that era's over. It's time to fully wipe the slate clean. We'll get some draft picks. We'll be bad, but we'll be back. So I do like what they did. I think they made a couple of good moves during the offseason. I mean, the starting lineup's supposed to be pretty underwhelming. You have Schroeder, who I do like at around $13 million a year. That could be a nice trade piece before the trade deadline. Cam Thomas, who's only getting paid $4 million. He's going to get paid. Whether you actually like him or not, he is a scorer. He could be inefficient, but he's a scorer. He could also be on the trade block. You're looking at Finney Smith, who I really don't like that much, but he's linked to a bunch of teams every year as a 3-and-D guy. Cam Johnson, same story. And you also
Shout
have
out VA.
who they paid. Claxton got paid during the offseason, so he'll be with the Nets for a couple more years. Point is, with the Nets, it's tough to fully evaluate the roster because, one, this team we know is going to be bad. B, you wonder how many people are going to be here post-trade deadline. Because the Nets, if they are fully selling off, might sell off all assets, and you end up trading away Cam Johnson and Finney Smith during the, I'd say, final week before the trade deadline. So this team can get worse, but there's one incentive of the brand new head coach: be as bad as possible, try to get Cooper Flag, and rebuild the franchise. So I like this team to be awful, and I feel like they have no incentive to be good, and they might sell off players before the trade deadline. I'm on the under, but I do love the direction that this team went in the offseason. They did what they had to do. They had to bottom out to try to rebuild themselves. I like what they did, but that's going to result in a really bad basketball season.
Yeah, and I'm just because I was really, really curious. And good on the Nets of clearing out. I mean, they can really, really rebuild this team in a couple of years. They've cleared out all
So much cap
future,
space.
yeah, all future cap space. I mean, the only person that's on for the only two people that are on significant contracts for multiple years are Claxton and Johnson.
Mhm.
Johnson's tied up until 2026, 2027, and Claxton the year after. But I mean, everybody else, they got Bojan from that Knicks trade expiring contract. You talked about Schroeder expiring contract. They go get Zaire Williams, who's only getting $8 million next year. And I think he could be like a nice little bench piece, probably something that just plays while they're trying to figure this out, but nothing serious. Like, they're not paying anybody. They cleared out a whole bunch. Why is Killian Hayes
Well,
getting
they're
money?
paying one guy a lot of money, but he's also an expiring. We have to mention him. His
Yeah.
name's Ben Simmons.
Oh, no. So it's so funny because I'm looking at his name at the top and I immediately scrolled down to the next name. Like, didn't even
Yep.
acknowledge that he's on the team.
I'm only
I'm so
mentioning him
sorry.
because he's getting paid $40 million. So he is getting paid, but it is the last year of his contract. So
Yeah.
he actually might be sold off by the deadline because, of course, other teams try to acquire expiring deals for cap space in the future. So you might end up seeing one team maybe even trade for Ben Simmons, like
Is that
cash
even a good
consideration,
idea?
maybe.
I mean, maybe if you get like a solid player, I could see that.
I
But
know it's
like,
only for half a season. I'm saying like the Nets completely dump him for like cash considerations, but
oh,
the other
just cash
team
and
just gets the cap
just give
space.
him up. Yeah,
Yeah,
a
they're just
second
gonna give
round
him
pick,
up. He's terrible, but
couple second round picks, stuff, something like that. Okay,
I
I
don't
feel
even
that.
think you'd get a couple. But my point is, there might be a team out there for the sake of trying to accumulate cap space for the upcoming season that would maybe trade for Ben Simmons solely for half a season of nothing just to get the cap space. That is possible. So expiring contracts are pretty valuable in the league. So maybe
Yeah,
Ben Simmons actually gets traded, but it will be for nothing substantial or really nothing at all.
yeah, I can't, man. So I'm with you. It's really not much to talk about here with the Nets. You got to take the under 19.5. I
They're not
mean,
trying to win. I mean, you saw the entire front office playing this offseason. They want Cooper Flag. I
yeah.
spent a couple hours when Flag was playing in the select team, and I was actually like watching some highlights. I came up with tanking nicknames for the Nets. That's how I spent my time for the season. So they're going to be really bad.
What names did you come up with, Scott?
I have to pull that up. So just give me a
I,
second
I
here.
I would. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you really have this.
No, I actually it's on Twitter. I just got to quickly find it.
So, while
Unfortunately,
you're doing that, to just go through some of the last place teams in the league, the Pistons were last with 17 wins last year. Oh no, that's 2023. I'm sorry. Last year, the Pistons were last with 14 wins, and shoot, even the freaking Wizards had 15
well, the
wins.
one thing that really matters there, what was the third worst record? Because the bottom three teams have the same exact percentage.
So the third worst was 21,
Okay.
and that
I
was
do want to
Charlotte.
point out, though, that this was a really bad draft class, according to most people. But with
Hmm.
Cooper Flag there, the tanking might be something unholy for the last couple weeks of the season, because this draft class is supposed to be really good. So I got three nicknames for the Nets tanking that I came up with back in June. This was from June 25th. I got
Hmm.
three. Stoop for Coop, Gain the Main, and I got Main Event Pre-Order.
Oh my gosh.
But it's Maine spelled like the state because he's from the state of Maine. That's the point. I think Main
Stoop
Event
for
Pre-Order is
Coop
my
is
favorite,
crazy.
but there's a couple of them out there.
Oh man, we're gonna workshop those, Scott. We're
I
gonna
think Main
workshop
Event
them.
Pre-Order is pretty good.
Main event pre-order.
It's pretty good.
I
I mean,
wish I could find some plus money way to bet this team, but I mean, you just fade
the
them
plus
and
money
just
way
get it
would
done.
be to try to bet them to be the worst team in the league, but I don't even know if that's going to be plus money.
I don't even see odds on that. I was looking for it.
No, they have best record. They don't have worst record.
Yeah. All right. Before we get to the next team, we gotta talk to you about Underdog Fantasy. Big menu of NBA, WNBA, NFL, college football, all those players, fantasy stats that you can bat on Underdog Fantasy, higher or lower. You can add them, and hey, you can get a whole bunch of profit boosts, specials, all of that. So go sign up with promo code NBA SGPN. Claim your special pick and first time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com. Promo code NBA SGPN. All right.
By the way, I did find a potential way to fade the Nets at plus money, but it's not going to be easy. They
Mhm.
have DraftKings has exact regular season wins, but it's in intervals. So you can get the Nets to finish with like 13 to 16 at 3-1, 17 to 20 at 240, 12 or less is 6-1. So you can experiment with some interval stuff, but it's not going to be easy.
Mhm.
But in
17 and 20 feels like that saves you in case of a bad beat.
pretty
Well,
much,
no, that wouldn't.
that's
No, that wouldn't
available
because
at
you'd have to
plus
go
240.
up to 20.
That's plus 240.
Plus 240.
I mean, in
No, so you'd
theory,
have
if
to
you end
go.
up betting 17 to 20, 13 to 16, and 12 or less, you bet all three of them, and you don't like see the Nets win 21 plus games, then you do automatically make money if you break it
Hmm.
down that way, because the plus 240 you would capitalize on that. So you can find a way to like divide up the units there, but all three of those are
Hmm.
plus money. So that is a potential way to make money betting against the Nets. Because that way, if they end up going for like 11 wins and they completely bottom out, that's at 6 to 1. So you actually can get a decent payday if they completely bottom out.
All right. Next team up, the Toronto Raptors. It is the Raptors next, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's the Raptors. Win total sitting here at 29.5, 400 to 1 to win the division. 6 to 1 make playoffs. Gotta lay 900 to get 100 for them to miss the playoffs. Year 2 of Darko. Darko gets the team. I mean, from what he had in the preseason of year 1 to year 2 is completely different. I mean, this is it how is this team just not an over team over the course of the year again?
Well, the reason what you talk about over for wins or you talk about over for
I mean,
actual game totals?
over for actually like the games they just put up a bunch of points, but they end up getting killed on the defensive end.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. They're going to be an over team in terms of individual games. The
Yeah.
question is, can you win many games doing that? And I do find Toronto's roster a bit fascinating because they waited
Mhm.
way too long to actually rebuild. They let Van Vliet walk in free agency a couple of years ago. They really did a disservice to the fans by just not doing anything, and then they ended up
Mhm.
losing in the play-in anyway. So, like, I don't really know what they were trying to do. Then they made, of course, the Quickly trade, which is interesting because, of course, they got Barrett quickly, but they ended up giving up Anunoby, which is a trade I don't mind. But when you factor in how much money they're paying quickly and Barrett, it is definitely an interesting direction to take your overall franchise. To go through
Mhm.
the starting lineup, though, of projections, you have quickly Barrett, Barnes, who's getting paid a lot of money too, Kelly Olynyk, and Jakob Poeltl. They got Davion Mitchell. They have Bruce Brown for now, who's somehow still here. He'll be traded. They have Grady Dick. You have Agbaji, and you have Boucher. So their bench is fine. I still think that you're looking at a team that's not going to be any good at all. And
Mhm.
Jakob Poeltl had some quotes about uh, what the potential for the team's going to be for the upcoming season. Did you catch this by any
No, I
chance?
didn't. No, I didn't.
So Jakob Poeltl had some quotes which a lot of people had an issue with, not about him being dishonest, but about him saying stuff out loud that he probably shouldn't say out loud. He
Mhm.
basically said indirectly the team's prioritizing development of players instead of actually winning. But he said
Oh.
that publicly
Oh.
in like a media day press conference.
The
So
quiet power out loud.
correct. He basically said, "We're not winning a title this year. We're here for player development." That's basically
Mhm.
what he said, and you're not supposed to say that, but that kind of tells me this team's going to be tanking at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I don't think this team's any good. I think Quickly is an interesting player because I know that his assists are fun, but he can't guard anybody. And I still feel like he's trying to kind of find his overall role in the league in order to blossom. And he's kind of a tweener between a starter and a bench guy. But you want him to be more efficient, but I don't know if that's actually his game. Barrett's a guy who I've not been a fan of. I thought he was fine with Toronto, but the point is, I don't really like their overall roster makeup. And with Pearl making quotes like that, I don't see them getting to 30. I think they're another team that's going to be struggling that might bench some people at the end of the year to try to increase the ping pong ball probability. I like
Mhm.
the under. I think this team wins like 25. I don't see them fully bottoming out like the Nets because the Nets are built to be terrible. But 29.5 feels like a lot. I mean, they're 400 to 1 to win the division. So nobody's expecting them to be even halfway decent. I'll go under. I think Pirtle's quotes are pretty spot on here. They're going to be bad at the end of the year, especially when they try to sit some guys and they start tanking. So I'll go with the under. Give me a team that wins 25-26.
Yeah, I can't get past this team, and I mean, they were bottom 5 defense last year.
That's not
I
going to
don't
change, by the way.
Yeah, there's nothing possibly there that's gonna like, they didn't bring it I mean, Davion Mitchell? Are you saying,
Now,
like, is
your
Davion
front
Mitchell about to change the
I
culture
was
of
roasting
defense?
Quickly and Barrett defensively. He tries sometimes, but whatever. Your front court defense is Kelly Olynyk and Jakob Poeltl. You can't block anything. You have no shot blockers on your team in the starting lineup.
No,
Like, that's not a good
at
sign.
all.
Your defense is going to get killed.
Especially inside the paint. I can't see this. I can't see this going well. And they're gonna get into shootouts. And the thing is, they're not even equipped to battle all the way with teams in shootouts. Like they
Yeah.
have some nice pieces that can get hot, but those are also streaky. And so the Toronto Raptors, this is going to be their season. They're going to suck for the majority of the season. They're going to have that run where they get completely streaky shooting from the entire team and they look competitive. And then they're going to go back to sucking again because
Yeah.
that streak ran out.
That streak also might last like 3 games.
Yeah. Under 29.5. That's way too high. 30 wins.
It's a lot for a team where one of their starters just said, we're not actually trying to win a title this year.
Toronto might
Of course
actually
they weren't
be in it
going
for the
to
ping
anyway,
pong
but you
balls
can't
too.
say that.
Yeah.
Before the season starts, you can't go out and say, yeah, we care about development. We're just chilling. Whatever happens, happen. Like, what? You can't really say that publicly, but he's not wrong. I think that at least there's an awareness with the players, which is, we're not going to be good, so just deal with it, and
And
we'll
then
try to
Toronto
figure it
deals
out.
with injury all the time. Like
That too.
if you get this rostered injured, Scott, this might be your best bet, Scott.
I mean, they're going to be
Might
bad.
be. I think they're going to be as bad as the Nets. I think they're going to be just as bad as the Nets.
As bad might be a stretch because the Nets really might have a hard time reaching like 16 wins. I think the Nets might be able to sneak a couple games in there because at least you have a couple of pros. Maybe Cam Thomas gives you 40 in a game. That's how Toronto wins. You get a random like 30, 40 piece from either a Quickly or even like Barrett gives you 35 and maybe you find a way to win one. But it's not sustainable. It's not going to happen too often. I do want to ask you though, because of course
I
you're a
will
Knicks
say
fan.
this.
Okay. I'll
I
let you
don't
go
think they're
first.
not going to be as bad as the Nets because they have to play the Nets. So if the Nets have 16 wins, they're going to have 20.
Yeah, that's fair. I do want to ask you though, since you are a Knicks fan, it's not really going to involve the team. It's more just about the actual players. What are your thoughts or like your player profiles on Quickly and Barrett? Because I am wondering. I've kind of had the same negative opinion on both of them, but you watched
Mhm.
them play a lot more than I did. I still saw them play. I didn't really like what I saw, especially from Barrett. But I do want to ask you, what do you think of those two guys? Am I being too harsh, or you do think that there is some type of flawed aspect to their games and they really haven't improved over the course of their careers?
I don't think it's a flawed aspect to their game. I think they're asked to play roles that they shouldn't be asked to play in. RJ Barrett was a key piece, starting piece for the New York Knicks, and he did not need to be. And because he was the third overall pick, he was put into that role, but he was probably should have been a role bench guy. And we shouldn't been putting that much pressure on him night in, night out to carry the scoring because that's not what he should be doing. Same thing with Emmanuel Quickly, who can actually carry the scoring, but he doesn't need to be your number one, number two option for scoring. He needs to be one of those guys, sixth man of the year. That was a great role for him, a really good role for him as sixth man of the year, and now he's starting. So I think both of these two guys need new scenery, and it's not going to be the Toronto Raptors. And as long as the Toronto Raptors are trying to make these two and Scotty Barnes the core pieces of their teams, they're not going to be good. There's a cap. Like there is a cap on how good they can play. And they need the coaching and the development. And I just don't think they have that in Toronto starting here. I think that this Toronto part of their career, because I don't think their career is over after Toronto. I think this Toronto portion of both of their careers is going to mold them to be really, really good role players for a good team later on down the future. But for these next couple of years, it's not going to look pretty.
Yeah, I feel like the reason why I'm asking is because I'm looking at Barrett's contract, and it's actually pretty good. He's getting paid about $25 million for the next 3 years, a little bit more, but that's not bad for today's NBA. Like the
Mhm.
max contracts are in the 60s. He's getting like 27. Like, okay, like all right. I do think that based on today's NBA, that's not a bad deal for them. The reason why I brought it up is because I do agree with you about Quickly. I think Quickly is a perfect sixth man for a team, and now he's starting. And on top of that, Toronto just gave him 5 years, $162.5 million.
Yeah, like you can't even trade him to make him a six man for like that's too
And
much.
I know what some people are going to say, like, isn't that close to what Barrett's getting paid? Like, yes, but I think Quickly is a sixth man. I think Barrett's
Yeah.
a starter. I'm not sure if he's a good one, but I think that he's like a fourth option on a team. You're looking at Quickly, who made his name with the Knicks as being a solid energy bench guy. Now you throw him into the starting lineup because your team's not any good, and you're going to be paying him for the next 5 years. At least Barrett's off the books in 3. Like, you can make some moves there, but you sign Quickly long term, and you felt like you kind of had to because you traded away Anunoby in order to get him, and you thought that he was the main piece of that trade. So it's a base salary of $32 million. And then you also paid Scotty Barnes a bunch of money because Scotty Barnes has got a 5-year, $224 million contract. So his average deal is going to be 44.5, which in today's NBA, you could argue is not that bad because the max guys are getting 60 and change. But when you put that much money together with Quickly and Barnes, and that's for length, about 5 years apiece, I don't know how you build a serious team around that. Like, I'm not going to take you seriously.
It's clear they're prepping for the future because in 2 years, we're going to be like, oh, these contracts are amazing that they have these on the books.
Because the cap keeps going up, and I
yeah.
get it. It's just...
So this is clear. This is clear. This team was constructed with the thoughts of the future, and they're not going to win games. This is real. 29.5 is a lot of wins for a team that is not constructed to play good right now. Like, that is a lot of wins.
Once again, there are a lot of teams that are incentivized to be really, really bad at the end of the year because as bad as the draft class was projected for this year, that's how good the draft class is supposed to be for next year because you're looking at a couple of potential franchise-changing players. And you might argue, well, your percentage will still be low if you're Toronto. Maybe your percentage will be like 5%. They'll take the 5% in a heartbeat because this team's headed nowhere.
Brought to you by BetUS, best in the business for over 30 years. You can easily deposit cryptocurrency and get lightning fast payouts. So sign up and deposit $100, and guess what? You have a chance to win a 1960 Ford Mustang. Yes, that is a picture of Michael Vick. Shout out to my guy Mike Vick, 757 very own. Use our sign up link and get a $125 deposit bonus up to your first 3 deposits. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/betus. It's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/betus. Promo code SGPN so they know we sent you. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Rhythm's AI powered sports betting platform helps all bettors build custom predictive betting models in seconds. Their team of data scientists give you everything you need. You can use Rhythm AI to check the picks of the week. WNBA, NFL, college football got some really good picks going. So claim your 7-day free trial by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. Team number 3.
By the way, you're going to mention in a second, but there's a pretty massive gap there between the bad teams and the good teams because Toronto's at 29.5. The next team's win total's 52.5.
Holy crap. All right. Well, let's go ahead, Scott. Studio Reichel. The Philadelphia 76ers. Win total, as you said, 52.5. Plus 380 to win the division. Make playoffs. You got to lay 3,000 to get 100. Miss playoffs 13-1. They bring in Paul George.
Do you like the move? Nick Nurse. We'll start there. Do you like their offseason?
Bringing in Paul George, I like the move, but I don't like it.
Okay.
And I say that because it just puts us in the same spot with this team and Paul George has been relatively healthy over the past few years, but I just say that there's always that concern and that thought in the back of my mind of, is Paul George going to be okay? Is Paul George going to get hurt? Are we going to go through another season?
Paul George played 74 games last year, for reference.
Yes. So are we going to go through another season where Paul George gets hurt and he's missing time? Are we going to go through another season where Joel Embiid gets hurt and he's missing time? That completely tanked they were so good in the beginning of last year to the point where they looked like the best team in the league. They were winning a bunch of games. Joel Embiid was playing amazing. If they lost, they bounced back really, really well. They had really good winning streaks going on. Then Embiid got hurt, and everything went down. Everything went downhill from there. All win total props were just absolutely killed at that moment. I fell for the trap last year. I still stand on if Joel Embiid didn't get hurt, they cruise over this win total. They probably still don't do anything in the playoffs, but at least they cruise over the win total.
I think they would have won a round because you might end up getting like Cleveland or Orlando. I would have given them one round.
Yeah,
the Knicks were just a bad matchup, but they wouldn't have won anything substantial. They weren't beating Boston.
Yeah, they probably weren't beating Boston, but I want to like this team. I want to be in on the 76ers as a regular season juggernaut that just goes out, wins a whole bunch of games, and goes into the playoffs. Like you said, maybe win around, maybe even two. Ultimately, fall short, probably so, but still to make a run or have some type of a actual playoffs instead of going into like a play-in game or anything like that. I just can't like Joel Embiid has gotten hurt so much. And it's like you're literally taking this win total and you're saying, is Joel Embiid going to play a whole season? Yes. Win total over. No. Win total under.
All right. So I'm going to go over. I think they're going to be a good regular season team. Now, the Paul George move, I feel like you can argue it's not going to work long term, which is why some people are against it. My counterpoint will be it's Tobias Harris. Like, that is a pretty massive upgrade when you have Tobias Harris on your team, and Sixers fans hated him for a long time. And now you upgrade to Paul George. That is a massive upgrade. Do I trust Paul George to stay healthy? No. I said that he played 74 games last year. He has played less than 57 games in 4 of the last 5 seasons. The one exception was last year. So, once again, before last year, the last time he played 57 plus games was the 2018-2019 season with the Thunder. So, you could argue that it was definitely fluky in the sense that he is usually more injury prone than he was. So, even if you are expecting some regression there, or I should say some positive regression because he's going to play some regression because he's going to play less games for this upcoming season. Embiid is injury prone too. However, he's usually not that injury prone where he's going to be playing less than 40 games in a season. Each of the previous 2 seasons, Embiid played 60 plus games. He played 66 in 2022, 2023, and he played 68 in 2021 and 2022. If Embiid plays 55 games, 60 games, they're
I
probably
mean,
going over.
he's got to hit the 65 for the award. I think that's always the goal for him to at least get
Correct.
enough to get the awards. And that's why I kind of like it because I'm like, dog, do you remember what he looked like when he was trying to play hurt last year?
Yeah, it was a mess. But then again, I
But
did have his. Yeah, I'll let you go.
no, what I was saying is, but the underrated move that they made this offseason that I really, really like is they went and
Gilmore.
got Andre Drummond.
Oh,
I think signing Andre Drummond was great. Now you got a backup big, and you got somebody that's going to provide rebounding, and out with in the non-Joel Embiid minutes, and that's going to mean a lot, especially on the offensive glass. Still slightly concerned for the rest of the bench and how that turns out, but I think getting Drummond from Chicago as your backup center and can play when Embiid is either not playing that night or anything. I think that does really does mean a lot. So uh I do like this team. I just really got burned last year, man. I got burned so bad. That was flying. That
yeah,
win total was flying over.
the way that I'm looking at it though is they won 47 games last year and Embiid missed more than half the season. If Embiid plays like 60 games, they
That should
should
go
fly
over.
over. So I'll go with the over on that one. And I think Paul George can steal you a couple of wins if Embiid gets hurt. So you're not totally screwed if he ends up getting injured and vice versa. Because if George gets injured, then Embiid could still carry. I thought they were one of the bigger winners of the offseason. I'm not saying they're going to actually win a title because I don't trust Embiid to ever win a title, being the best player on a team. But you're looking at the moves they actually made. Paul George is an upgrade over Tobias Harris. Caleb Martin's a good addition. Their bench is fine. They got Lowry, Eric Gordon. They got McCann from Duke. They got KJ Martin, Drummond. They got Reggie Jackson, who I hate, but Council was pretty good last year. They got Yabusele, who we saw was very good in the Olympics. They got Abona, who I think is a pretty solid defensive center from UCLA. I like their overall depth. I'm not saying they got a lot of bench guys that can start for other teams, but I think that team could potentially go 8 deep. I think that's good enough for regular season. I think their bench is fine. I think the Sixers roster is definitely improved. Is it good enough to get the job done in the playoffs? I'm not going to say it is, but for a regular season team, this team on paper should win like mid 50s. So I'll go with the over.
The Andre Drummond move was really the thing that sold me. I just thought that was backup bigs are just so hard to come by.
Oh, and they
And
sit
so
Embiid and Drummond starts. We're taking like the alt rebounds every single
oh
time.
man.
It's just.
But once again, I have to say RIP to my guy Paul Reed.
B-ball Paul?
Man, he was so good. Not loved, not cherished enough in this league. Not cherished enough. All right. Yeah. All right. I'll go over again. Despite getting burned last year, I got to get it back in blood this year
And
because
being
it
is
was
injury
really,
prone, but he missed more than half the season. That's a
it
little bit
was
extreme.
so dog. What was the? I got to go back and see what their first 30 games was like or something like that. It was something insane. They kept winning. They just kept winning. All
I'll
right.
pull it up.
Really like Tyrese Maxey too. Think Maxey, Paul George is going to be fun.
That 3-pointer he hit against the Knicks in that elimination game is still wild. We can talk about it because your team won the series, but that was something when he made that 3-pointer from like 35.
Had me shaking.
Mhm.
All right.
Speaking of which,
Well, speaking of the New York Knicks, let's talk about my New York Knicks. 54.5 is the win total. Can't remember the last time I seen a Knicks win total this high. Plus 290 to win the division. Make playoffs. You gotta lay 5,000. Miss playoffs 18-1. I will say, Scott, I felt way better about this Knicks team 2 weeks ago than I did after the trade. So, New York Knicks, well, they began the year as the Villanova Knicks, and then that died when Dante left, and they traded Dante and Julius Randle for Karl Anthony Towns. A basketball sense, I really like the move. I think the spacing is insane. I think they have committed to shooting on the outside. I think they are still really, really solid defensively. I think this team was constructed to compete with Boston. However, mentally, I mean, it only takes one headline. I think it's only going to take one headline. And then Cat is going to we've seen Cat break down mentally before.
and
And
physically.
granted, Cat has been yeah, and physically. But Cat has been through a tremendous ordeal. A tremendous ordeal. Like since COVID, all that, a tremendous ordeal. If he's not right mentally for New York media, like he might as well be a bad player. I've come up here on this show year after year and sang the praises of Cat the player, Cat the player, Cat the player. I think Cat is a unguardable player. I think Cat has the skill set, the size to be an unguardable player. Like there's just nothing as much as good as defense as you want to play, you ultimately can't do anything because he's too talented, he's too big. But oh my gosh, Cat is weak mentally, and he has to be the second best player on the team. You don't make this trade for another role player that's just going to go around and no, he has to legit be the second best player on the team. For this to work, he has to be the second best player on the team. If Cat is the third, fourth best player on this team, it probably doesn't work. It makes me nervous. With all that being said, I don't get many years that I just get to homer the Knicks. So I might as well enjoy it. Give me the Knicks over 54.5. Scott, what do you like here?
I'm on the fence for this one because I think on paper, this team is a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference. The problem that I have long term within that Cat contract is going to be disastrous because he said he has to be the second best player on the team. He actually does, because when you factor in that he's in year 1 of a 4-year, $220 million contract, that's why Minnesota got rid of him. He's getting paid $49 million this year.
It's just
to go through the actual years, 49 this year, 53 next year, 57 the year after that. He's got a player option for 61 in 2027, 2028. So he has to be the second best player because he's getting paid that much money.
If you think about it, they said Wemby is due to make like some $90,000. So is Cat that much worse than that's like half? So really, is it a horrible deal? Probably
I'm
so
saying
right now, but
compared to
not
the
for
other
later.
contracts on the team, it's a lot of money. The Brunson contract is the best contract in the league. When you actually factor in how that works itself out.
And shout out to my dog for taking one for the team. I'm telling you, you don't need, what do you need all that money for? Just go, let's go win championships. You don't
That's
need
the
all that
one
money.
thing that's the main thing I actually respect Tom Brady for, was that he constantly took pay cuts to make his team better around him, which I respect. Different sport, but still, I feel like more star players should do that. Point is, I do think when you're looking at the Knicks, Long term, that's the question. You had such a great deal on Brunson. Even the Bridges contract's pretty good. Did you want to put your main max guy as Karl Anthony Towns? That's the main question long term. I do want to point out the injury history because you mentioned the mental issues with Cat. I'll mention the physical issues because he has played less than 63 games in 4 of the last 5 seasons.
Holy shit.
So now he's playing with Thibodeau, which is probably not going to go well. You also paid Anunoby a bunch of money. He gets hurt every year. Now, we know how good the Knicks are when Anunoby plays, and I understand that, he has just been a very injury-prone player. The problem is if you end up getting worst-case scenario, and you end up seeing Anunoby being out, and you end up seeing Cat being out for, let's say, double-digit games apiece, do you think this Knicks team, with basically no backup center, because Robinson's still injured like always, do you think this team's good enough to actually hover around 500 or be slightly above if both those guys are out? And I think the answer is actually yes. I think they could find ways to win games anyway because of the amount of effort they actually just showcase. Josh Hart gives you a random 16 rebound game and you find ways to win. I think they can win games if one of those two or if both those guys miss a couple weeks. So I think they're not going to bottom out. By the way,
I mean,
Philly
they're
was
not going to lose to the bad teams, but they're not beating the good teams.
correct. But I
Because
think
because it's Tibbs. So once those guys are out, we know Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart are playing every minute of the game. Probably see some Deuce McBride in there playing a bunch of minutes, and then they got to. But all indications are they're trying to shop around Mitchell Robinson. They're trying to get another backup big option, another wing option. So I'm sure that there's moves that they'll probably make that were unforeseen to right now, but this just becomes a 3-man show if those two guys get hurt. And that's the scary part about it for me.
That's one thing about Tibbs, though, is that you like taking overs with coaches that take games seriously in the random middle months of the season. Thibodeau always takes the game seriously, and I do think based on effort and based on the talent they have, there's a game where Bridges might be able to get you 25, maybe 30 in a game. You lost DiVincenzo, who's a solid three-point shooter, so that's going to be a big deal. But Bridges is the opposite of Anunoby. He plays a ton of games. He hasn't missed a game in his entire career. So you're looking at a guy who should provide some stability to the 3-and-D portion of the lineup, which helps. Brunson, we know, is going to be a fringe MVP candidate. I don't see him winning, but I think he'll be in the running for a decent portion of the season.
We're definitely going to have a ticket on him, and we're going to watch the ticket odds get lower, but it might
It's going to get lower, but I don't see him winning. But the point is he'll be going for first-team All-NBA. I'm not sure he'll get there. You could argue he should have gotten there last year, but the point is he's a top 10 player in the league, and I feel like that's pretty obvious at this point. So they have a lot of talent to check a lot of boxes. They have a coach that's very good for the regular season, not so much for the playoffs, but we're talking about the regular season. So I'll go with the Knicks over 55.5. I think 54.5. I think this team gets to the high 50s, maybe mid 50s, but I think they'll compete for a division title. I don't know if they're going to get there, but I think they're built to succeed in the regular season. Playoffs are where you got problems, but we'll cross that bridge when we cross that bridge. I'll go with the regular season success. Give me the over.
It's just for me, it's just trusting Tibbs in that, hey, he's going to run whoever's out there into the ground. And then when they're not out there, he's going to run the next guy into the ground. So it's not like you have, I don't have to worry about Campaign, Landry Shamet, Okiku, because those guys aren't going to play.
Payne might play a little bit if you want some an energy point guard bench guy, but Brunson's going to play high 30s in minutes anyway.
Yeah, they're those guys. I mean, come on, it's Tibbs. It's Tibbs. Those guys better enjoy that bench seat and get Jalen Brunson his water when he get there. Because
the real problem your team has though is that you have no backup center at all because Robinson can't stay healthy. If he does come back, then maybe you got something there. But right now your backup center is Jericho Sims.
So I'm waiting on a move because I think that if they get one more wing and can have Josh Hart come off the bench again, because we've seen his rotations, and I think that energy piece of Josh Hart is gonna boost up, any rotation that Tibbs have. I enjoyed Josh Hart a lot better when he was. I mean, I loved him. Of course, I loved him when he was starting. He was cashing the rebounds prop every single day. But he's so good as a 6-man. And if we have the talent that can force Josh Hart to be a 6-man, this team is really, really good. Like really, really good. And I think that's the move that moves them up to the upper echelon. I've seen some like Trey Murphy talk out there of
He
trading
also
for
just
Trey
got
Murphy.
injured, so that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, but if a healthy Trey Murphy on this team, I think is really good. I think that's a really good move. Like a player like that kind of comp. So
Problem is the cap space, because since you're paying Cat that much money, now you're paying some guys, I think $1 above the minimum. The Knicks found a loophole in the contract system, so they got around it, but they don't really have any cap space, so that is going to be an issue. But I do think once again it comes down to the playoffs are going to come down to Cat and how Cat ends up looking against some of the other centers in the playoffs, and if he no shows. For the regular season, though, it works. I mean, if you asked me right now, would I rather have Cat for about 60 million, or would I rather have Hartenstein, for about a third of the contract and taking Hartenstein in 2 seconds? But I understand why they trade. They made the trade because Cat can be an all-star. He's a guy that can give you 20 plus, and he's a guy that gives you some offensive flexibility because Hartenstein, as good as he is and the activity he brings, he has no offensive talent at all. So you wanted to get a bit more, I'd say, deep offensively, which might be able to help you not look totally hideous offensively in playoff series. So that was the main reason why they did it. They wanted a few more scoring options. They wanted the ability to score in the paint if needed. Cat's not a big paint guy. He's more of an outside shooting guy, but you can make the argument that actually does clear space for Brunson. So I understand the vision. I'm not sure if it's going to work, but I think it works in the regular season. That's kind of my point.
All right. Last team, my nemesis, the Boston Celtics, laying $1.45 to win the division. 58.5 is the win total. What? You gotta lay $10,000 for them to get 100 in the playoffs.
To be
25 to 1 to miss
fair,
playoffs.
it's free. It's free money, but yes, that is the price.
So thank you, USA Basketball. I really appreciate you. Because now Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are effectively making this a revenge year, coming off of a championship, which is actually insane. But I mean, hey, Jason Tatum felt very, very disrespected. I'm telling you, Jason Tatum can go for 50 on anybody, but there's one team for sure he's giving 50 this year. For sure.
It's a team out
Jaylen
west,
Brown.
I believe.
Huh?
It's a team out west.
Yeah. Yeah. 100% giving him 50. Like, Scott. Can we write that in the notes, Scott?
What was that though? That's the Gilbert Arenas revenge tour, right?
Like,
Gilbert who did that a couple years ago.
What? Let's see. When do they play them? When do they play them?
I'm pretty sure that was Gilbert Arenas who did that. Who tried out for the national team, didn't get there, and then he had that master class where he dropped like 60 on Kobe, and he had that insane run. So yeah, we've seen Gilbert Arenas do it. I can see Tatum doing it
at some point. Yeah. So sooner than we think. Wednesday, and they come to Boston. Wednesday, November 6th. Wednesday, November 6th. Huh? That's gonna be. Yeah. Let's go ahead and write that. Annotate that. We're gonna be on that. So Jaylen Brown also. And it's so funny how like you talk about those two and you're like, how could they not make this team? How could they not get minutes? Da da da. Meanwhile, two of the teammates are on the team, and you're like actively saying, well, I mean, we know they're better than those two teammates, but it's like, how you have Drew Holiday instead of Jaylen Brown? Like,
Well, the main issue was
how do you have Derek White instead of Jaylen
Derek
Brown?
White was the main one. Holiday earned a spot. The question was Derek
Yeah.
White.
I mean, yeah, no, Holiday's been there before, but like, yeah, it's so there's only two ways that this could possibly not hit. Injury, Joe Mazzulla. Only two ways. That's actually like I'm actually kind of happy the Celtics won a championship and kind of nullified my automatic fade Celtics play, which had been going for 20 plus years strong until they won that championship. So now I'm willing to entertain betting Celtics in different moments. Willing to entertain it. May not do it, but willing to entertain it. How is this not a revenge year where they just go and absolutely destroy the league? And then, I mean, Joe Mazzulla can mess up a playoff series, but the regular season, like,
I was
no.
more concerned about the regular season because I saw a lot of choke jobs the Celtics had in the fourth quarter. I mean, they blew that one game to the Cavs, and I still haven't fully recovered from that. But
No, a lot. There's a lot of games, but like, I mean, it's at 58.5. Like, you're basically saying 60 wins.
to be fair, they did win 64 last year. And you have the Nets and the Raptors, who should be worse. Now, the counterpoint is I think the Knicks and Sixers will be better. So they might balance out.
Mm-hmm.
I am going over. I think when you're looking around the league, I'm not sure a lot of teams actually got better this offseason. The Knicks and the Sixers, I think, did. The Nets won 32. It might take 2 years to get to 32 for the Nets to do that again. You're looking at 2 years combined, by the way. The Nets are not going to be winning 32 anytime soon. The Raptors 125. That's probably, that could be a bit high. So once again, you're looking at a division where two of these teams should suck. I'm not saying it's the AL Central, where you have like the White Sox, who set the modern day record for most losses in a season, which single-handedly stat pads every other team's record in that division. But the argument is the Nets and the Raptors should be handing out free wins for a decent amount of this division. But you're going down the line. Did the Bucks get better? I don't know. Like, not really.
Essentially the same.
Essentially the same. The Cavs are the same. The Pacers had 47. They might get better because they won a playoff series, but roster-wise, they're kind of the same. The Bulls won 39 last year. That shouldn't happen. The Pistons might be a little bit better, but the Heat won 46. The Magic won 47. The Hawks should be bad again. You have the Hornets and the Wizards. Half the teams are tanking. I mean, the Nuggets won 57. That's getting into the Western Conference, but that team might be worse. The Celtics, I think, might be the deepest team in the league, and they probably are, and it's not a hot take. I mean, you're going down the actual lineup here, and Porzingis might miss a couple of months, so keep that in mind. But you have Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Al Horford. You have Pritchard. You got Shireman, who's that three-point shooter from Creighton, who's a very good shooter. You got Sam Hauser, Xavier Tillman, and Cornette. And then you throw in Lonnie Walker, who they ended up signing. They got a couple of guys here. They got Keita, who I actually like. But the point is, the Celtics basically have the exact same team as last year, and they won 64 the year prior. Jaylen Brown and Tatum, even if you don't like them, the one thing I will point out, which I have to at least compare and contrast to the Knicks, those guys never miss games. They play a lot of games every year.
That's the only way that this doesn't hit. It has to be an injury to one of those two guys.
Pretty much.
That's the only way this, and even then, they still probably win a considerable amount of games because they still have the other guy.
And historically speaking, they play a bunch of games. They don't get injured that often. So I like the over. They got 64 last year. They were arguably better than 64. There were a couple choke jobs in there. They could have potentially won like 67.
They always do that. And
correct.
It's just, that's ultimately all the underfade is just fading the number of choke jobs they have a year. And
or you think
they
can
only beat themselves. They can only beat themselves under this total.
You think that they struggle without Porzingis and they might get off to a slow start, but I'm on the over. I think this team is built to be a consistent 60-win team.
Yeah.
And as I said before, the bad teams in the league are going to be really bad because they're going for Cooper Flag, which might set up a lot of free wins in the final couple months of the season.
I wonder. Let's look and see. Yo, the last 2 games of the season, they have a back-to-back game set against the Hornets.
You get my point. LaMelo will probably not play in any of those.
So in April, they have 3 games, 2 against the Hornets, 1 against the Wizards. Clear tank there. Yeah. And when you get into March, if the Spurs didn't figure it out, if they didn't figure it out by that point, they're sure probably tanking again at this point. The Jazz are probably tanking. The Blazers are definitely tanking. They got a double game set against the Nets in March. That's a for sure easy couple of wins. Here go Trailblazers and Jazz again during this. And yeah, okay, over.
The point is, if you are not even halfway decent, you are not trying to win any games in the back half of the season. There will be a lot of tanking teams. So just keep that in mind. But I do want to point out one thing that also could play a factor. how good the Sixers and the Knicks are going to be in this season might actually help send the Celtics over, as paradoxical as that sounds, because
because
the
they have to
Celtics
keep
won
up.
the division. Yeah, the Celtics won the division by 14 games last year.
Yeah, they got to keep up.
They didn't have to try in the last month. So if this is still a race, they're not going to be benching anybody.
Yeah, 100%. I'm with you. All right, over 58.5. Joe Mazzulla fucks this season up, but he fucks it up in the playoffs. He doesn't fuck it up in the regular season. But I truly believe that the only way is Joe Mazzulla fucks this up in the playoffs, and I'm still fine fading that. I can fade it. I can fade a coach. I really think Joe Mazzulla is overrated as a head coach. Like, really overrated. I've just seen too many of those collapses for a team that's like, yeah, nobody's perfect, but it's too many collapses. I still think Mazzulla is overrated. All right, best bet.
I'll let you go first. We might have the same one, but I'm going to let you go first.
Yeah, it's super easy for me. This Toronto Raptors team is not getting to 30 wins. That's not happening.
For reference, they got to 25 last year.
And you can say all you would, but you have Quickly and Barrett, who I know and I've seen deal with injury problems. I've seen this Toronto Raptors team deal with injury problems. More than likely, they're going to be shipping Bruce Brown off at the deadline and whoever else off at the deadline as well. Like, at what point? Yeah, and yeah, you have the Jakob Poeltl comment that you said about developing talent, but like, I didn't even need that. This team, it's clear that that's what this team. He didn't have to say it out loud because we already knew. Like, but he just confirmed it for us, and thank you. But this Raptors team just is not good. They're not good. They're not going to play any defense. They don't have any rim protection at all. Teams are going to have a field day inside the paint. I think that if Jakob Poeltl gets hurt again, like he did, then they absolutely have zero rebounding. Jakob Poeltl is really the only rebounding asset that I really think they have. We'll see. They go and they get Bruno Fernando. They go get Bruno Fernando. So yeah, no, absolutely not. That's their backup big. I'm fading the Toronto Raptors. I don't think this team is constructed to win games at all. With the Cooper Flag stuff, what's the quickest way to rebuild your roster? To add a Cooper, if you add a Cooper Flag to that roster, they're better. They're 100% better. So yeah, I think that's what they're trying to do. I don't think Cooper Flag wants to be a Raptor, but I think they're 100% going for ping pong balls. 30 is a nice gap where I'm saying they can drop down to like a 25 that last year, 26, anything like that, and be able to have a nice spot for ping pong balls. But I think they're trying to go worse. I think they're going to be one of the bottom teams in the league for sure. So I'm taking the Toronto Raptors under 29.5 wins.
Yeah, I'm either taking that or the Nets. The Nets have to finish bottom 3, and they should. The issue is bottom 3 tends to involve being around that 19-20 win mark, but you have a lot of teams that are intentionally trying to lose. So the Nets probably go under. This team probably wins like 15, if I had to guess, but I think I have to agree. I got to go with Toronto. This team's going to be horrible. I just don't know how I'm supposed to expect them to look even mediocre.
With that many wins, like, I think they're comparable to the Nets, and they have 10 more wins.
What I don't get is that Toronto made this Quickly and Barrett trade right around the trade deadline. So we saw this team with those two guys for months, and they sucked. Like, they were horrible after they got those two guys. And now you have a full season, and you're expected to somehow win 5 more games than last year. I don't understand how that's supposed to happen. The Raptors, we know, are not incentivized to win right now. Their starting center said it. Don't take our word for it. I just don't know why they would be able to get to 30 when we think this team can't guard anybody. The front court of Olynyk and Poeltl in 2024 is so unserious that it's just funny to me.
Like, you're not trying. You're not trying.
Not at all.
You literally, who is defending?
The only player that is actually, like, I think a decent defender in the backcourt for that team is arguably Bruce Brown. And hot take here, I think he gets traded to Denver midway through the season.
Mitchell.
Davion Mitchell, true, but it depends if he gets minutes. Good point. Good point.
Yeah, no,
he was nicknamed Off Night. He was nicknamed
Off Night. Off Night is such, like, and I will never.
I forgot they got Mitchell. Yeah, the issue was the Kings never ran with him. But yeah, you got my point. The point is Toronto might trade up some pieces at the deadline. Bruce Brown's not going to be there post deadline. My hot take is, we'll mention it maybe if I end up doing the other divisions in the Western Conference. I think Denver's going to struggle, and I think a reunion is in store for Bruce Brown. I think he ends up back in Denver. So I think Bruce Brown will not be there for the second half of the year. But you're looking at Toronto, and once again, teams that are kind of in no man's land, or close to being in no man's land, where you're not good enough to make the playoffs, but you're not bad enough to totally bottom out. What's your strategy for the season? With this draft class, your strategy is to blow it up. Your strategy is to sit everybody, phantom injuries to Barnes and to Quickly and to Barrett. You sit them, you get your ass kicked at the end of the year, and you try to get as many ping pong balls as possible. That's the plan. Toronto, I don't see being 5 wins better than last year when the draft class is significantly better this year than last year. I'm on the under with you. That's my best bet. This team probably wins close to 25 again.
Yeah. They're so screwed. Sorry, Toronto. That's it. At least you're playing in Toronto this year. We faded you in years where you weren't even playing in Toronto. Like, come on. All right. Scott, anything else for the people before we get up out of here?
Not really. Should be a fun division. Maybe not the bottom half should be fun anyway if you're betting against them the entire season.
I was about to say that. Yeah, we're definitely there's going to be sizable income on and I'm not even a futures better, but there's going to be sizable income on Raptors under 29.5.
Yeah. I'm saying in general, from a game-by-game basis, these two teams might be really, really bad at the end of the year. But you are looking at a fun division, probably one of the more fun divisions in the league, because you have 3 teams with a projected win total of 53 or above. So there's a lot of talent here. A lot of fun, potential head-to-head matchups, probably on prime time. Fun division, and we got a couple more to do. So it should be fun.
All right. He's at Retro Radio. I'm at really real _ Make sure you give us a follow on NBA Gambling Podcast at SGPN NBA on X. And hey, if you're not already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and subscribe. All of that. And also, if you're not, it's youtube.com/NBA Gambling Podcast. If you didn't know, youtube.com/NBA Gambling Podcast. All right. With that, I have nothing else to say, nothing else to do. No other way of ending the podcast. Just gonna end like this. Man, I hope the Knicks really don't disappoint me. We are out of here.